I guess maybe I've gone a step too far. I'm trying to use something I found in a ditch. Welcome back to Made by J&D. I've got D over here. I'm Jim. I'm going to put the cab back on the frame today. And the last episode I'd finished the torsion bars, or at least, I don't know, I put some torsion bars underneath the front. It made a change. I'm hoping that with the cab on it, it won't sag too much, and I still have enough adjustment in those torsion bars to make up for that if I need to. I just wanted to give you a shot up underneath the cab here, because it's the big thing. Big giant fender wells, it's all open. Engine fits about here. Kind of see underneath the dash. Steering wheel, brakes, shifting mechanism. Yeah, so all I have to do is shove the frame up underneath it, and hopefully it aligns more or less. The way I've got it in here now, I was using the gantry crane to go ahead and put the cab on it. That gave me a lot of room to move side to side, forward, back, whatever I needed it to do. It's going to be harder now that I've got the cab up on the lift, because it just doesn't give me that adjustment, that I can't move it around that easy. So that means I'll have to shove the frame up underneath it and side to side, back and forth. I can use the floor jack a little bit to move the front end around, or the back, I guess, independently. So I still have that, I suppose. But yeah, here we go. It's a lot more than it used to be. It's nice. Okay, bounces, honey.
It does bounce,
This thing's going to ride pretty choppy because it's such a short wheelbase. Front side's here. I'm going to have to lay this in the cab, lay it forward. How do I support the radiator? Well, this frame that goes on the outside, this bracket and one just like it were mounted to the frame right in front of the motorhome there. And I can still use that nice big peripheral thing there. I'm going to take these brackets off because they're too big to allow me to move this around. Nope, it's be coming out just fine. Okay, that's gonna, I have to clear this arm. So that's probably going to be the bottom limit. The thing is, well, see, the radiator on this was way forward. There was a lot of room here between the back of the radiator and the front of the motor. So that was never an issue before. I'm moving it back quite a ways. These brackets here used to hold the shroud. And I probably will have to make a shroud for sure. But I think if I put the top about where I'm standing now, I have to change the camera angle. But I'm thinking the top of this can fit right up in here below the floorboards. I have to allow enough room for the hose here. See, that's the bottom hose. The top hose goes here. So it has to go along. Make it the other stool. Be about right. Don't know how well the camera shows it, but right back there is the pitman arm for the steering. I can't put this radiator too much further back. It should clear it the way it is. Shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem, but I can't go any further to the rear. I can't bring it anywhere forward to the front. I can move this. That's not a big deal. It's just making some new lines. Put it elsewhere. The original position for that was behind the front wheel anyways. And
As far as here's the inlet, comes from here, not a problem. The outlet from there can come up. I've got a good 3 inches from where the floorboard goes, right on top of this, to the top of that outlet. And that can go via a pipe to the top of the motor, well, over there, and then have a hose join it. These, like I said, these brackets are for the shroud. May or may not need them. I'll probably need a shroud of some sort. But the shroud's going to be something like this, I think. I'd have to have enough room for the fan here. So come up. Yeah, I'm not going to have a clear floorboard like I wanted, but that's okay. I can make do with this. So the shroud can come up here, and then the fan, I'm going to have to use a fan. And the fan sticks out. Oh, it's not going to hit the top of the radiator. It's very close. So the back of the two things, I can move the radiator forward a bit, or I can lower the bottom of the radiator, I can lower it down a bit. That's just putting it at risk of road damage and stuff. But I can work with this. Good enough. It's got a 1/2 inch clearance there. If it's really, I don't have much room to move it toward the front either. That means just lowering it. I have to lower it a bit. The alternative is I can place it back here. Okay, the radiator is now back to front. The inlet's down there, outlets here. That is about where it would wind up. Oh boy, there's plenty of room here for it. It's going to encroach. These are passenger seating areas. No, whether or not they'll ever actually be used, I don't know, but I sure want to keep them as a possibility. So, the other thing is, okay, pros and cons. Up front, I can use the fan from the motor. I know it's a very efficient fan. There is some challenges with shrouds and routing of the coolant pipes. I have to do something with the remote reservoir here, connect that to something in front. And it would encroach on the footwell inside the truck. It's going to have to come out a bit and down. It's going to be a complicated footwell. I can do that. It's probably not going to interfere with how the seats are arranged or anything like that. On the plus side, it would have nice, fresh cooling air coming into it. The other plus is, like I said, the fan. Works very well, that big fan there. It's a big motor, needs a lot of airflow. And that's probably one of the negatives. Trying to get air into it when it's laying flat like that, I'd have to have some kind of ducting to direct air into the bottom of this coming out the top. And then the shroud to the fan. So, the one positive there is it's in front, and there's nothing here in the back. It keeps the back nice and neat and tidy, and fresh air, cool air. Now, if I put it back here, I don't have cool air. I'd have to come up with something to shield the motor. This would have to have air ducting coming into it from somewhere else. And probably not that hard. I can come in from the fender wells here, from the inside the fender wells. I could have fresh air coming in around the motor, have the motor covered. That might actually work all right. This sort of interferes with seating back here. However, I can set this quite a ways back in here. There's really no reason that I can't set this right back on top of this. That would probably work all right. Just get some ducting, so I can get some nice ducting for fresh air. It's probably too far forward. I'll probably do something else. So I'm a little bit forward, back from this. Now, as far as passengers here, Well, it's going to have sides coming this way and this way. Hot air is going to be coming out of this. I might be able to direct that down or up. Maybe it won't be a problem at all. I can fix that later on if it's a problem. And this is going to free up all the footwell, this nice flat footwell like I want it. The fan won't be there, so I'd have to use electric fans. And I know, well, I don't know. I've heard that electric fans work, but they're power hungry. They take a lot of power to run. And probably deal with that. But overheating may be an issue. I don't know. It's a big enough radiator, 2 fans, I don't know. If I get the ducting right and actually pulling air out of the wheel wells, it's going to have dirt and water and dust and rocks and who knows what all. So I'll have to address that. Make sure it's just air getting to the front of this side here. As far as running hoses and pipes, it's not a problem. That can just run across the top or the back or the side or something. There's a lot of room in there. I can run coolant pipes. There's an exhaust pipe here and here. I have to have shields for that. Yeah, this radiator is a little too far forward. It has to come back a bit. I think I'm settling on a solution. I asked my brother and my brother-in-laws, and yeah, there was pros and cons against everything. I would like to put it behind the motor, but I think the ducting is going to be more complicated. Electric fans are apparently noisy. Not that big a deal, I guess, but that, along with the extra ducting and shielding I'd have to put around the motor. Yeah, I still have to do ducting here. There's still a clearance problem with the fan, but if I move this proportioning valve in front, I have a whole bunch of room here that I can put this radiator. Brother-in-law Gary, he built one of those Shelby Cobras, and he used something called an inline radiator cap, which I didn't know they even made, but apparently that's a modern device they use on modern Mopar even. Anyways, that can come off the top of the motor here. Radiator cap can go right here, and then that would go, via a pipe over to here. There's plenty of room. If I put, let's just use something here. Let's say that this piece of foam is my floorboard, and that sits on top of this beam. This is about underneath here. Well, what is that? Well, that's probably 5 inches of room. I can bring this radiator up in front, and because the pipe is only 1.5 inches, and that's plenty of room for an elbow and 1.5 inch pipe to run this way and then up over into the top. And then that hose there is a very easy connection straight into the bottom, where it goes back into the engine. So even though this is going to intrude into the cabin, some of that, I guess, is just, it was going to anyway, a little bit, just a little bit. This isn't that much more. I think I can make it, it's going to be okay. The seats are above this level anyway. Yeah, so I'll lose some space, but this is going to be like this and then come up. I think that'll work. I can make that work. And it's probably going to be simpler bracketry as far as supporting the radiator. They just use these simple brackets. On the side of this frame there's these simple brackets, and I can bolt that right onto the frame here and on the other side, top and bottom, all front and rear, I guess. Yeah, so I think that's the way we're going to go. I've gotten rid of the proportioning valve here, and the lines for the brakes are just hanging loose. I'll have to fix them later. Back here, the fan is now clear, but I don't want to really lower this radiator any further. It's still got a good bit of clearance, bottom of the radiator to the frame. I just don't want to lower it any closer to the ground right now. I probably could quite easily, maybe 1 inch or so. But what I'm thinking about now is how I'm going to construct the ducting, the shroud. I think it'll be in halves. I'll have one half that comes in from here and then down.
and then the floor will come down onto it, and it'll be the part that goes up around here. This is the original shroud, and it looks like it's mounted like this. Yeah, it was mounted about like that. So it had this ring. This ring was mounted to some brackets here on the front of the motor. I thought a good place to start was taking this ring off and bolt it on to those brackets. I've already cut the little clips that were holding this on to the rubber. There's the ring. And that then goes like this. So I'm thinking I'll have to lower the radiator and probably cut out part of this frame. That shouldn't be a problem. I can beef that frame up so it doesn't want to collapse or something. At the end of the day, I'm bolting to this frame on the sides. There's some existing mounts here at the top, and then the bottom, not a problem. Just come up to about here. I was thinking I might be able to maybe even bolt this top of this frame to this front cross member here on the frame of the chassis. But I'm going to try to leave that clear. If for no other reason, then it makes it easier for the shroud to be fitted in here. I've finished clearing away the remainder of what used to be the floorboards. This one only went to about here, and then there was a big, well, actually about here, there was a big cutout. The motor for the fire truck was back there behind this, where the radiator was, which was here. That opened up the entire floor space, and I'm concerned about heat making the cab too hot. There's things I can do to insulate underneath the floor pan to keep engine heat off for the most part. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. There's also sound deadening that I want to put in, which is, I've used it in other places on like my air compressor. It was really noisy because the tank was like broadcasting like a drum. I put that sound deadening material on it, and it quieted it right down. So I can use that. I don't know how good of a heat insulator it is, but it's a good noise insulator. I found out this motor, or the fan anyways, is 3 inches off center. So, well, 3 inches, inch and a half, I don't know, but that's center and the fan is actually over a bit. That's kind of weird. I never actually measured the motor, but anyways, this isn't centered. So the radiator actually wasn't centered either. The radiator was on the motorhome was over that way about 5 inches. I'm going to move it over this way because I have brake lines over there. I've got the throttle cable, some other stuff. I have a brake line here as well, but it's just one. You know, it's not a whole bunch like that. I can work around it. The radiator is really heavy. I don't want to drop it and bend it up. So taking that frame off means I'll have just a light frame to work with, and I can mount the frame to this when I get the mounts done. Then I can put the radiator back in and put it in place. I've ordered some pipes. The outlet here from the motor inlet to the radiator is 1.5 inches. The return is 1.75 inches. So this 1.5 inches is going to be going over to that side. This side here comes off of this. It's just a hose. I'm just going to use a hose, not pipe. Technically, I guess I could use hose for the entire run everywhere, but I think pipe would look better and I could secure it in place better without vibrating around and rubbing on something. For now, I'm just going to take the radiator shell off, or that frame off the radiator, and start working on that to put in the mounts. Once I get that mounted, I can start thinking about what am I going to use to support the floor. The floor before was checker plate, really heavy 1/4 inch checker plate or 3/16, pretty heavy stuff. I don't need that. I can just use, regular, I don't know what gauge metal. And however, that'll have to have some kind of bracing underneath. The frame in the front here is I've got a lot of room anyways, underneath here to the top of the frame. I'll probably end up using 1x2 rectangular tubing if I can find that, something similar. That'll just be welded in, bottom here, bottom over there. It'll go straight across the fan. I mean, it'll be in front of the fan, but the shroud's going to be over here, so it's not going to really limit airflow. That'll give a good, it'll be actually back here. And what that gives me then is I can weld something to it to support this 45 that goes up this way. It's probably not 45, it's something steeper than that. And that'll end to about here. Again, that shroud's going to be about down this way. I reckon this will just be boxed in. It won't be round. It'll be boxed in, straight sides, and then down to about here in the middle somewhere. And that'll leave this forward part of the floor flat. Yeah, that's how we're doing it. The top of the radiator here also has a vent tube. This cap, I'll probably just leave it in place, or a new one. Make sure it's got a good seal, because that's going to be really hard to get to once I have this in place. And it's just a plug. I'm just using it for a plug. I guess technically I don't need to take this off. I don't need to plug that at all, actually. It would never work anyway unless this gets too high a pressure and blows out. I'll just don't have to worry about it then. I'll just put a hose. It'll just be in, well, I can't do that because that's below the level of the motor. Yeah, I'll have to, I don't know, I'll think about it. Spring nuts there. These are the rubber things I'm going to replace. They've paid for themselves. Okay, lay that down so I don't damage it on this piece of cardboard. There are no leaks that I can tell on that radiator. There is some staining on the front, but I think that was probably from one of the coolers that were on the front of it. Yeah, those are well and truly gone. Full of dirt. I'd probably rub a hole in the radiator if I'd left them in. The hole here and here on this side, and I can use that for the mount. For some reason, this one goes down a hole. I'd like to put it up here like the first one, so they'll be matched. I can do that easy enough. Take these bits out. I don't know what they're used for anymore. The shroud bolted into right here. I made a mark here, kind of a semicircle. That's where the bottom of that ring is around the fan. So that's where the bottom of that ring fits. So I'm going to put a bit of metal here. Probably make it even so between these two holes. And that'll be the kind of a flat piece that comes out to go underneath that ring. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, the metal brake's good too, but
Make a big bang.
Donna's showing all the various adjustments. Bringing the clamp down and then back. We've got the little thing there to hold the clamp forward. Well, these are the bottom little brackets that hold the bottom of the radiator. These are some of the, that was one of the rotten rubbers that came out. Now I've got 4 new rubbers. Came with a kit. And anyway, here's the new ones. So I've got all new elastomer rubbers. And some pieces that I can't use because these were actually from a late 60s GMC pickup. And they were, what they were for is a 4-core radiator. And that's what I got. But this is the top brackets that I don't need. These brackets are fine. There's no problem with them. They're a bit rusty, but they're not all rusted out. Luckily, the shell wasn't corroded out. The brackets, however, that's why I've got these new ones. They were in bad shape. These are all rusted out, full of holes. They're falling apart. And, you know, I just had to tap them with a cold chisel to get them out. They were spot welded in. Because, you know, it's kind of critical in that this radiator, instead of being mounted vertical, then gravity is holding it down here. This is now going to be the bottom here, and this shell is now going to be in a horizontal position. So these can't come out. They have to go in, they have to be pretty rigid. So anyways, I'll weld them in place. And you know, I might clean this up a little bit. I need to get some of that paint. It's called a weld through primer because I want that to be primed underneath where I'm welding. Might have to make a trip to town to do that. So that side was fairly close. You know, it wouldn't, I could have a little minor bracket like that and it'd be strong enough to support the radiator. On this side, it's quite a long stretch. This is about, 5-6 inches. It's quite a long stretch for a simple piece of bracket to go across and then go down and support that radiator. So I opted to use this piece of 20 mil or a 3/4 inch square tubing. It's kind of weak, but I think I can beef it up because I also will need to support a fan shroud here. But this here is going to be supporting the radiator and it will be pretty stable. So between the motor and this fan shroud or fan bracket, there's going to be quite a bit of movement, relative movement. So I can't weld those two together. I'll just have to have some kind of piece of metal and then some rubber something gasket in there. A little while ago I mentioned that this motor isn't centered, or at least the fan isn't centered. I watched an episode last night on Jay Leno about a one-of-one Oldsmobile 442 that Hearst had put together, and they used parts from a Tornado, old Tornado, 1968. And yeah, he used the entire front subframe, which is pretty much identical to this one. This is heavier duty, I think. But he was saying, or at least the owner was saying, the engine is offset to the right. And that was, I guess, to make the drive shaft down there more equal length and get rid of torque steer. So yeah, it is off center. So these are all bolted in. And my next task is I'm going to start the floorboards next. There's a lot of things happening. The motor has its own vibration. It's on motor mounts and it's going to move around a lot. It's going to be moving independently of both the cab and this frame. Now this frame and the cab are not, there's bushings here. So the cab's going to be moving around, there's flex. The relative motion between this motor and anything else is going to be quite a bit. So it's going to have to be a pretty thick rubber bushing for a seal or something, just to make sure most of the air is coming through the radiator. And then the cab is going to be holding the floorboards. But the floorboards, going about here and then up, they have to be, again, relative motion because of these bushings to this part, to the frame down here. So where do I start with all that? I'm probably overthinking it, but whatever, why not? This is, this is a different height than this, so there's a good 2 inches of clearance between this and the bottom of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut a piece of that rectangular tubing and just clamp it up underneath here, 2 pieces probably. I'll move this one around. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be. This one's going to be here because that's where that's the corner of the floor. And I'll follow this angle here all the way through. Where it gets to the fan, I'll have to box it out. I believe this is 14 gauge, not 1/8 inch, because 1/8 inch was pretty heavy. I didn't think I needed that heavy of a material. That's pretty close to the fan, but that's not a problem. This is going to be hanging in the breeze as well. So the actual slope to this is going to start somewhere in this neighborhood. It'll slope up. And not the whole thing, it's just this part. Pretty much right above this radiator frame. Come straight up and then slope inward. So I'm going to cut a second piece of this and put it here in the middle. That'll be the weight-bearing parts of the floor. I wanted to remind myself what was here before I started taking it all apart. This is the original hump that was on this side. I'd forgotten that it was the seat base for the passengers. If I didn't want to have a clear floor space, I could just kind of duplicate something like this. It was about in that position. Actually, I was wrong about another thing. There was a support in the middle of the floor. That was it right there. So anyways, I'm going to have a support there. It's not the same thing. This is a C channel. Bit heavy, well, it's the same metal thickness, but it's only a C channel, not a rectangular tubing. But it tells me something. When I do put seats in here, the box that I have to build around the fan isn't going to interfere with seating. I think the seat was about this thick. That might actually interfere at the very back in the middle here. But, yeah, that should be okay. I should be able to work with that. I'm not going to secure these in place just yet. What I'm going to do is, I'll show you some of the materials I'm going to use. I've bought myself a piece of 16 gauge sheet metal. And that'll be the main floor, as well as, going around the top of the fan, or around the fan, make the fan box out of and such. Over here, that galvanized ducting, this area we're living in is still being built up. A lot of new houses going in. Windstorms crop up and things blow around. And it was just in the ditch. Nobody wanted it. Been there for months. I reckon that'll be part of my fan shroud. It's obviously not in perfect shape. It'll do. It's not going to be seen by anyone except me, and I'll forgive myself. What I haven't made a video of is this thing. I made this nice little, I put a bunch of bolts on it so eventually I can make it into a, what do they call a pan brake. Pan brake has a bunch of interchangeable fingers that you can do various width pans, and you can have edges folded that go up into it. This right now, the way it's set up, is just a sheet metal brake. And that's what I'm going to use to make portions of this. I think I'll end up doubling it over to make it strong on the edges. And yeah, I didn't do a video on this because, well, frankly, I didn't do a very good job. And there are much better videos on YouTube about how to make one of these. I didn't follow any one plan in particular, mainly because, like always, I'm using a lot of scrap iron. A lot of the brakes you can buy are good for 18 gauge and lighter metal or aluminum. And this, I hope, will do at least 16 gauge because that's my sheet over there. It should do 16 gauge okay. I have some other 16 gauge over there that I've bent, and it worked all right. Did it work perfectly? No, but it'll be good enough. Get the dirt off it first. I've got this made, and it's just kind of clamped in at the moment. And I looked at this nice bracket that I'd spent a lot of time making. The shrouds, it's going to have to, it has to go through the fan shroud that I'm going to make for this. That's just too hard. I should have just done it right in the first place. So, out with the old, in with the new. I had to make a piece out of using my new sheet metal bender, U-shaped piece. And the problem, I had to work around all these services. Power steering lines, there's a throttle cable goes through here, who knows what else. But I couldn't just put it up against the frame like those are. So this had to stand off about 6 inches. And I just took a piece of frame from the motorhome. It's 1/8 inch, but it's really, I think it's high carbon, pretty strong stuff. And that's what the frame of the motorhome is made out of. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's got to be strong enough to hold a radiator, right? The original radiator brackets, there were 2 brackets. They had 10 bolts, 2 on the bottom, 3 on the side of the radiator frame. And now I've got 4 brackets with 13 bolts. And that should hold it. Even though it's horizontal, it should be strong enough. Now I have to reutilize the holes that I'd already drilled, and that worked okay. Now I can continue making the rest of the shroud and see which directions I have to go then. I am quite proud of myself. That's my template, and that is the gap filling thing at the back. Yeah. I'm having trouble getting access to clip that one in there finally. So I'll remove these underfloor supports for the moment. Well, time to pull the shroud out and do my final little bits of cuts on the edges. I still have to make the ring that goes at least up to here. I didn't think about turning on the camera till just now, but this was a part of the fire truck cab. I'm not sure what part. I think it was what was behind the seats. But it was a piece about this long, so it was the right length, a little bit too wide. And it's going to slip down in here pretty nice, I think. That goes up against the brackets that hold this fan ring. And yeah, so it's tight up against it. It's not going to wind up that way. I'm going to have a bit of a gap. And I've made marks about I have to cut because this is recessed here and it's proud here. Anyways, it's got to have cut down to this one of these lines. I'm leaving tabs that I'll then bend and pop rivet on to the actual fan frame or the radiator frame and part of the shroud. Should keep everything nice and rigid too. Well, dang it. I was getting ready to put the radiator inside the frame, got the new rubber bits there, and start pretty much putting the shroud, the lower shroud, and the ring to go around the fan, get that all assembled. And I've got those pipes over there. These are galvanized just to form. I have to cut them to fit. One of them is going to have to go here, which is about in this area. This bottom one, I think I can just put the hose straight into it. The trouble is, with this being built the way I've made it, covers the entire frame. Well, before I was thinking, no big deal, I'll try to work out some way to have a bump here and have a hole cut here and there, and or maybe come out. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's easier to just remake this part than it is to try to figure out how to get the pipes to come out of that upper nozzle and bring in the hose down here. This radiator only takes a portion of this frame. About this much here, well, that much is uncovered and that much is uncovered on that side. Plus a gap. There's a gap here on each side. Okay, no big deal. I have the basic frame, the basic shape. I know the height it's got to be. So, yeah, I'll just remake that part to fit the radiator here rather than fit the hoses and pipes and stuff into that shroud. Ah, dang it. Before coming out here this morning, my wife was asking me a question. Why are you not wanting to leave the house? And there's a bunch of little things I was doing inside. And I don't know. Other than this is just, it's just freaking me out. I guess maybe I've gone a step too far. I'm trying to use something I found in a ditch, ducting material. This piece would work. This piece is that I could make work. But there's still a problem where this comes up. It's got to be firm enough that something can press down on it and make a seal. Because this is the lower part of the shroud. The upper part's going to be the floorboard. And it's going to have to be a join that's flexible because the cab's moving, the frame's moving, and they're moving different. So it has to be some kind of gap or seal there. This isn't really strong enough. I'd have to beef it up. Even though I've done the doubled edges over here, it's just not, it's too too flimsy. Well, you know, I bought a 4x8 sheet of 16 gauge. Plus I have quite a bit of the old body metal left, just came out of the fire truck. I'm going to make all this out of that 16 gauge or whatever that gauge is, probably 18, I don't know. It'll be rigid enough then that it can take a seal. I can weld it in place instead of pop rivet and all that. And yeah. So this one thing I'm have to redo twice. Well, it's still the second time, but everything's going to change. It's hard to see it now, but here's the radiator frame, sandblasted and painted up. It may be a surprise to some people, but I'm not a welder. I kind of goof around with it. I've always had a welder for years and years and years. And I can stick stuff together. It's kind of like a really fancy glue gun. I have, up to this point, been using gasless flux core wire, because you can get a hotter weld, and you can weld thicker material. Even the little guide on the Lincoln 180 over there, you can go up to thicker metals. And that's what I go with. And the other thing is cost. Buying a cylinder and then filling it full of gas. It's a costly thing, and I just got away from it. I've never really needed to weld thin material. Well, then you get this. I'm going to be needing to do more welding on thin metals. 16 gauge, 18 gauge, I don't know if I can get down there. I think this is 16. To change the Lincoln welder to be from gasless to gas MIG is you need to change plus to minus a couple of wires in there. I don't know what that does, but you have to do it. And then you add gas. And I have had gas from another project a long time ago that I did. I made a thing for my uncle on his passing. It was a little headstone on a tractor seat. It's just a marker more than a headstone. Anyways, I used that, and I didn't put plus to minus. I put the regular, I had the wires the wrong way. And man, it was awful. Only later on did I figure out that I'd done it wrong. And it was just too late at that point. I couldn't fix it and go back. Anyway, so now, for the first time since high school, actually, no, I never used MIG in high school either. All the MIG welding I've done was in Australia. I started goofing around with it. But again, I got to gasless flux core wire pretty quickly because the cylinders are just so expensive. And for the odd little bit of welding I did, it didn't make sense to keep them. So that's what I'm used to. Now it comes to this stuff. Well, I figured, I got the gas there. This is thin material. And, it's coming together a lot better. This is going to be a lot better for me. But it meant having to redo some things. This piece, I didn't know, this ring, I didn't know if I should weld that on or screw it on, but it makes sense for this and this to be one piece. I don't know if I'm ever going to have to take it out again, but I might. I'll never be able to take it out up, because I'm going to have to take the entire radiator and everything out to do anything with the shroud, because there's just no way to get the floor off unless I lift off the cab. Anyways, it made sense, instead of welding all this in one big chunk, let's do it in sections for future flexibility. For now, I've got this screw to put some riv nuts in here. The radiator fits closely enough in here that if there were a tank above and below, this would poke into it. But it doesn't do that. There's a C channel. The top and the bottom of the radiator is actually a C channel, and these will fit right into it. So I'm not worried about that. Quite, again, pleased with myself that I'm able to make this happen. I've got to rebend this piece so that from here, where it meets the shroud, it's going to have to go down to the about an inch in here. Yeah, anyway, I'll cut this. I can't figure it out in my head right now. So I've just marked it. There's my new flange. Part 1. Now I'll heat it and do part 2. Done. Just clean it up a bit. In my collection of old BMW parts, I found these neat little things. Why use pop rivets when you've got all these extra little bits left over from your R1100S? So this is a 5mm hex socket head, and I got a pile of them, so why not use them? And I am mix and matching so much, American and metric. These screws here are already 5mm screws, socket head screws. So, yeah, why not? That was a long time coming. That's actually quite pleased with the shape. Let's just see if I can weld it out. The welds are not pretty, but I'm still learning. It's only been a long time since I was in shop class, and they never showed us MIG welding anyway. There's another YouTuber his name's Matt. He runs a YouTube channel called Diesel Creek. We call him Junkyard Matt because he buys a lot of big, heavy construction equipment, and then he tries to fix it up or sell it or whatever. But he's got a good thing about his welding. He's not a welder. I'm not a welder. He's a pretty good diesel mechanic, though. But anyways, he was saying when he's doing some welding, well, grinder and paint make up for what he ain't. That's me. So this looks pretty good if you don't look too close. Up till now, this has got some weight, this has got some weight. The radiator's got a lot of weight. It was right in the middle of the truck, and I'm gonna have trouble getting it in there. So all one big chunk like this, and I don't want to damage the radiator. I mean, it's in really good shape for as old as it is. Doesn't have any bent fins. So I really don't want to just ruin it. Bad timing on my part. The camera ran out of memory before I did much of anything. It worked to plan. Put the back of the radiator on the jack stands back there and then tilted it forward. And the bolts are lined up. I've got most of them in. Got one left here and another one here. And then that'll be in place, and I'll put the shroud in. And wow. It's moving right along. I can see now why they use these pointy little bolts. That's how you get them to line up. All right, that is done. I expected this piece to go straight across through this shroud, but I don't think so. I'm going to cut this one off here. I'll have a brace coming in here and then up to the top here. Same on the other side. And that'll be good enough because I'll just brace it up for all the seating that's going to go in here. And that should be fine. There's not going to be anyone sitting or standing here in this, on the floor. That's the floorboards that are going to be here. The next episode is going to be plumbing, bits of pipe. I got to get hose. Fill point goes in between there somewhere. Thanks for sticking with me. If you've liked what you've seen, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.